If you take one look at my channel, it's probably no secret that I've always loved classic anime like Akira. The hand-drawn look, the textures, even the little imperfections. Anime in that era all felt so alive. But I have to come clean about something. I've had a lot of trouble really connecting with modern anime. Don't get me wrong, I've watched and enjoyed shows like Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, or JJK. There's so much to love about them, and they're visually stunning. But most modern anime just feels a bit too polished for me, too clean. It's almost like something's missing. Like the human touch has been sanitized away by the use of technology. That's why Dandadan really caught me off guard when I watched it recently. Going into it, I didn't expect to like it at all, but I fell in love right away. Somehow, it manages to capture the charm of older anime while embracing the innovations of modern animation. Although, I really didn't understand that at first. I just knew that something about it made it more approachable to me. It wasn't until I watched this awesome video from Tomorrow's filmmakers that the reason finally clicked. In his video, Tomorrow's filmmakers talks about a technique in filmmaking known as dirtying up the frame. It's exactly what it sounds like, adding partial obstructions in the foreground of a shot to add depth and interest. The technique helps to create a sense of authenticity that a lot of filmmakers strive for. There's even this trend of directors going so far as to use vintage lenses on modern digital cameras. They end up resorting to literally smudging or dirtying up the lens itself to give their movies a textured, tactile quality that a lot of us revere from classic movies shot on film. It was this concept of blending old techniques with new technology to create something striking that really brought it full circle for me. I think Dandadan is doing this, but for anime. It all starts with the studio behind Dandadan, sciencesaru. Known for their work on bold, experimental projects like Devilman Crybaby and Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken, sciencesaru has a reputation for blending classic techniques with digital tools to create animation that feels both modern and deeply personal. For Dandadan, the studio opted for a more labor-intensive process, using hand drawing on tablets to replicate the textured imperfections of traditional animation. This decision wasn't just about efficiency. It was about achieving a specific visual style that feels organic, tactile, and alive. It's the kind of approach that prioritizes artistry over convenience, embracing the effort required to make something truly distinctive. As we talk about Dandadan, I want to start with the line work, because that's what initially stood out to me. Standout classics like Akira and Cowboy Bebop have these bold, hand-drawn lines that give the art so much personality. You can almost feel the craftsmanship in every frame. Modern anime, by contrast, has leaned into computer animation, which tends towards clean digital lines that look beautiful, but are a bit too perfect for my taste. Dandadan strikes an incredible balance here. Its lines are sharp and precise like modern anime, but they're textured enough to feel organic and alive. You can tell this wasn't an accident. It's the kind of attention to detail that makes every frame feel deliberate. A reminder that artistry is just as much about what's added as what's left imperfect. Take 2022's The Batman, for example. Matt Reeves is one of those filmmakers who uses vintage lenses, deliberately adding subtle imperfections to create a gritty, tactile look that's distinctive among movies today. On the other hand, something like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness represents the other end of the spectrum. It's a visually competent film, but it's incredibly clean and sanitized, just like all the other comic book movies we've seen for a decade plus. Except The Batman, which felt like a breath of fresh air at its release and still feels like a high watermark visually and stylistically. Dandadan belongs distinctly in the Batman camp. It's those imperfections that make it shine. It's textured, layered, and alive. Its line work feels human in a way that clean, overly precise computer animation just can't. Overall, Dandadan really shines stylistically. It plays with visual style in ways that feel almost experimental. For example, there are moments where the series deliberately leans into its manga roots, framing scenes as if you're flipping through the pages of a comic. It's the kind of thing you'd expect from a show like Fooly Cooly, which leaned into this chaotic visual experimentation, but in Dandadan, this style is balanced by a more grounded narrative, so these moments feel just like punctuation marks rather than eating up the entire scene. And these choices aren't just stylish for the sake of being so. There's a method to this. Take for example the way the show decided to present certain elements, like aliens and yokai. In an interview, series director Yuga Yamashiro talked about the decision to give each villain a unique color palette. Not only that, they set out with the vision to have all yokai be hand-drawn, while all aliens would be CGI generated. These decisions add up to create a juxtaposition between the two. The aliens appear cold and inorganic versus the hand-drawn warmth of the ghosts that make them more relatable to the humans in the series. It's this approach that really sets Dandadan apart. It's not just trying to look cool, it's using different artistic techniques to communicate something specific to the viewers at every moment. This process carries over to the character design as well. One of the things that always stuck with me from classic anime were the characters. They were instantly iconic. Think Spike Spiegel, Sailor Moon, or Gohan. Their designs were simple but memorable. Modern anime characters, like in Demon Slayer or Attack on Titan, tend to have more intricate designs because they're computer generated and can be replicated more easily. Their costumes are more elaborate and multi-layered with intricate patterns and accessories. They look amazing and they make for awesome cosplays, but sometimes they lose that simplicity that made characters so easy to connect with. In Dandadan, the characters really hit that sweet spot. Momo Ayase feels stylish and modern with her oversized jacket and bold earrings, but her design is simple enough to feel timeless. The same thing applies to Okarun. He has that classic underdog energy like early Gohan. Each of them feel approachable, like characters who could belong in either era. And this is so key to bringing fans like me deeper into the show. Dandadan also excels in another area that's important for me, which is world building. The hand-painted backdrops of Akira or Miyazaki movies give their world so much depth and character. Modern anime like Made in Abyss trends towards a hyper-realistic approach, which is gorgeous, but again, it almost feels too perfect for me. Dandadan, on the other hand, reminds me of what Blade Runner 2049 did with its world. It paired the striking futuristic visuals of modern CGI with the tactile, grungy textures of its 80s predecessor. Similarly, in Dandadan, the urban settings are full of imperfections, graffiti, cluttered streets, worn-down buildings, that make them feel grounded and real. Then, when the story shifts into its supernatural spaces, it embraces surreal, otherworldly designs without feeling disconnected. It's cohesive and textured, like the way the Batman made Gotham feel like a character in itself through its gritty, layered cinematography. One of the things I've always appreciated about classic anime is its ability to balance serious storytelling with exaggerated, over-the-top comedy. Shows like GTO captured this perfectly, with wildly expressive faces and ridiculous scenarios that still felt grounded in character-driven humor. Or take Excel Saga, where the comedy was so chaotic and absurd that it felt like an art form in itself. Dandadan feels like a spiritual successor to this kind of humor. Its ridiculous facial expressions and absurd reactions are unapologetically over the top, but are used sparingly enough to complement the story rather than overwhelm it. The humor has a physicality to it that reminds me of Konosuba, where even simple gags are elevated by the character's wildly exaggerated body language. But what makes Dandadan special is that it balances this absurdity with moments of genuine emotional connection, much like Spy Family. The humor doesn't just exist for the sake of being funny, it's deeply tied into the characters and their relationships. When Momo and Okarun bicker or find themselves in bizarre situations, the comedy feels organic, making it easier to connect with them as people. By blending the chaotic energy of older shows like Excel Saga With the character-driven humor of modern anime like Spy Family, Dandadan creates a comedic style that feels timeless. It's not just funny for the sake of being funny. It's a reminder that laughter, when tied to character and story, has a unique ability to bring both levity and depth to any narrative. So, like I said, watching Dandadan was a real light bulb moment for me. It made me realize that some of the most striking art today, whether it's in film or anime, isn't about picking between old techniques and new ones. It's about finding ways to blend them, to take the best of both worlds, similar to how some of the best modern filmmakers are approaching their craft. And a lot of this comes down to the studio behind the series, sciencesaru. Their willingness to embrace more labor-intensive, handcrafted methods while utilizing modern tools isn't just impressive, it's inspiring. After seeing how much care they poured into Dandadan, I'm honestly feeling like I need to dive into their back catalog and catch up on all the incredible work I've missed. If Dandadan is any indication, sciencesaru has mastered the art of making animation that feels both nostalgic and groundbreaking. So, if you've ever felt a disconnect from modern anime, like you enjoy it, but it doesn't capture your heart quite the way the classics did, give Dandadan a shot. It might just surprise you the same way it surprised me, capturing my heart in an instant. It feels a little weird to give such high praise to an anime with the most absurd MacGuffin I've ever seen, but this show really endeared itself to me from the jump, and it never let up. If you've already seen it, let me know. Did it give you the same feeling, or am I just reading into it too much? Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'm Boy Meets TV, and I'll see you next time.